The New Britain Board of Education, providing students with a high-quality education.
Good evening. It is now 6:06 and we're going to call this meeting to order. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Sanders, if you would lead us.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm just processing the boards. No, you're good. Mr. Khan, if you would please call the roll.
Ms. Cheney?
Here.
Mr. Gay? Mr. Mercier?
Here.
Ms. Muniz? Ms. Parker?
Here.
Ms. Nancy Rodriguez?
Here.
Mr. Sanders?
here.
Ms. Sanders Connolly? Ms. Sims?
Here.
Ms. Nicole Rodriguez?
Here. Thank you. I'd like to take a moment of meditation, please, and if we would just think about and be appreciative of our teachers and all that they do for us in the system. Thank you. I have one signed up for public participation, Mr. Sal Escobalas, if you would please come. State your name and address for the record, please.
Salvador well, my full name, Salvador Escobalas, 2399 Stanley Street, New Britain, Connecticut, 06053. Teacher, father of two princesses over at De Loretto, president local 871. So, just something real quick here. Good evening all. I bring you greetings from local 871 and its 800 plus members. To paraphrase the great orator G-Eazy, for our younger folks here, we're not here to throw salt, we're just trading guidance. I wanted to take just a few moments to clear up a bit of confusion regarding the proposed gathering of some of the people service staff here, some of those beautiful people back there today. Despite what it might have looked like in email exchanges, it was not our intent to storm the Bastille, so to speak. If that was the case, we would have started at a certain White House in Washington, D.C. Because that's where the true disappointment lies. As I stated in an email, our intent today is simply to reaffirm the importance of our pupil service members, as they are too an important part of our membership and a huge piece of the puzzle here in the district. Now that might seem like we're stating the obvious, however sometimes we get so caught up in the social emotional wellness of our students that we forget about the adults. I blame no one in particular for this, as this is because the needs of our students often take priority. These beautiful people are responsible for helping many of our students at times of crisis, and they are also the stewards of many of our children's success via intervention, testing, so on and so forth. If life were fair in public education and funded it accordingly, New Britain would have the appropriate number of pupil service personnel to do a huge job that is tasked to the number of folks that we have as they bring their best day in and day out. This brings me to my main concern. We have to take care of these people. They are just as important to the classroom, if not in more cases. Sorry, teachers and administrators, sorry. I have seen these wonderful people perform and respond under very trying circumstances day in and day out. This week, Teacher Appreciation Week, we will show teachers our appreciation through various ways that we always do, and there's no complaints here on that. They should. And although we try to make it as inclusive as possible, psychologists, pathologists, counselors, and social workers don't always share equal billing on the marquee. As a father of two daughters in the district who could, at a given moment of distress, need a social worker, a psychologist, at a moment's notice, I want to be sure that they could access one easily. As an uncle of a student who has accessed people service personnel throughout the years in this district, I want to make sure that they're able to take their contractual time there for themselves on any given day and not feel bad about making my family member wait just a few moments more, provided there's no emergency. This is much bigger than concerns over lunch breaks and so on and so forth. This is about letting people do the job that is described in their job description when they can, while not overburdening them with tasks that are not necessarily in that job description. So enough said about that. Public education is a marathon, not a sprint, so if our pupil service personnel need to stop, stretch their calves, and catch their breath, so be it. Speaking of lyrics, my daughter Olivia and I were just listening to a song the other day which contained the lyrics, "There's a war on love." She asked what that meant. Without going into all the details about the awesome job I did explaining it to her, I can tell you that it made me think of these wonderful folks and the battle they fight to combat that narrative. These people truly work hard to keep the love of our kids at the center. So anyways, I hope that we sort of have achieved clarity now. I also hope the next time you lovely folks are walking through the schools in the school district, you have the opportunity to interact and touch base with some of these beautiful people and share a conversation about the job they do on behalf of our students. So I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Anyone else who would like to address the board? Final time, anyone else who would like to address the board? I can't, if you are raising your hand and I can't see you behind the podium, I apologize. Is there anyone back there? I just can't see. Okay. Thank you. This segment of public participation is closed. I just want to remind you all that we only in public participation are able to listen. We're not able to respond. So we do hear you, but we are not able to respond. It's not really allowed. So we do hear you and we listen. And then if there's anything that we can redirect or give you a resource, then we usually do that offline. Okay? Just wanted to remind you of that. Okay. I'd also like to take a minute to acknowledge Mr. Salerno back there. Thank you very much, sir, for attending the meeting and showing your support to the district as always. And right now I will turn the mic over to Superintendent Sarah for her report.
Thank you. We will be succinct, but I just wanted to first introduce, Ms. Sanford, do you want to come up and introduce the folks that are here?
Sure, but I'm going to pass that on a little bit to Rupal, so we.
Okay, so this is my superintendent report, but they can say it much better than I can, so we invite visitors in.
That doesn't sound like a superintendent. That's like a gaggle of people, but okay.
All right, so my name is Paul Bobjever. I'm the team lead for the Academy of IT Engineering and Manufacturing up at New Britain High School. So behind me are board members, a couple of graduates from the program, and obviously you guys know the ladies to my left as well. So I have a couple of things here I'm going to hand out to you, give you just some quick information, some reading materials, and on the back some statistics to the Academy of Engineering and Manufacturing and IT, and tells you a little bit more about, you guys already know about the Academy of Finance and how great they're doing. They've, year number 2 and they're distinguished again. My goal is to bring the Academy of IT Engineering and Manufacturing to that same level, especially with all the community partners, business partners that we have here. Their big lack of employees that you guys can hear about. This academy will definitely help fill that employment gap and will give our students that hands-on experience that they need. A lot of our students need to know, all right, here's a career that I can get into right after high school. And how do we get them there? Would be through this academy. So I'll just pass around this paper. I'm going to pass it off to the chair of the advisory board.
Thanks, Rupal. My name is Lori Theriault, and I am an owner of a student career coaching and planning company. I started the company after completing 30 years in manufacturing in the New Britain area. And being responsible for working and growing many companies in my 30 years, I wanted to take it to a different level. Today being asked to co-chair the Academy of IT and Manufacturing, it flowed very nicely with my experience. I had the pleasure of being a member of the Academy of Finance for nearly 5 years, so I had plenty of opportunity to learn how these academies run. Advising on curriculum changes to support today's needs is very important. Recruiting academy students to the right employers is very important, and to the right academies, because you have 3 now. Fundraising for necessary equipment. Seeing all academy students receive 120 hours of paid internship. Imagine that. That's prior to graduation. And then finally establishing long-lasting business and school partnerships to help fund and employ these students of New Britain High School's academies. And some of these employers are right here behind me. So, as I said, the advisory board is made up of many business volunteers along with continuing education representatives so that we can tie high school education, even middle school possibly, we touch on that, to continuing ed, whether it's a 2-year degree, 4-year degree, or on-the-job training. You know, the business owners are feeling the pain of not having trained resources and resources that have never had any hands-on classroom training. That's what we're experiencing. And I'm on the advisory board to make a positive difference in how Connecticut manufacturers move their business forward. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lillian Barkowitz, and I am the president of Richard's Machine in Newington, Connecticut. And I am a member of the advisory board, and I volunteer my time because I truly found a passion for manufacturing at a very young age. I took over a family business 16 years ago when my father had passed, but I truly, I want to stress how important manufacturing is today and for the future. It is far from a dying industry. And as a local business owner, our biggest problem is finding good help, let alone skilled help. And we at Richards currently have 3 students that we are working with, and they are working in the operations end of the company. And we were very surprised with the lack of basic courses that they have, not only leaving high school, but also in college. We're working with someone that's a junior in Central, and he's in a manufacturing engineering school, and he had no basic blueprint reading, intro to CNC, or any of the basic math or communication classes complete. I'm here to advise the administration that manufacturing is not the old 1970s vision that some people see. I took a picture of our company, and I can pass it around to show that the school, the manufacturing department that the New Britain High does have is a little outdated. And if they're going to push the students to look at a career in manufacturing, I truly do think that they need to update the whole program there. Manufacturing is a very fast-paced environment, and our deadlines are very, very critical. Taking time to train the new hires on basic skills puts more pressure and affects our deadlines. I feel we need to introduce the intro classes at an early age prior to junior year and show these students that there is and can be a very, very good future for them. I'm on this advisory board to kind of speed these things along and stress how much, not only from a monetary standpoint, but there is a great future in manufacturing in this area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a role within the district as the 612 curriculum coordinator, but I'm actually here as a wife today because my husband, who is on the advisory board, has to taxi tonight. So he is an IT manager at CCSU and is one of the higher ed representatives on the board. And the conversations that we have at home often revolve around the discrepancies, the lack in skill in student workers and students and IT personnel that he is getting at CCSU. So he has to manage not just students who are at CCSU, but then also people, he has full-time personnel as well who work for him. And so what we're building here in this academy, especially because we're using the NAF model, and because the NAF model is so broad in its understanding of what a student needs through high school and to come out of high school with in terms of skills to be successful. They're not just coding or app development or hardware repair or anything like that. It includes that, but it's broader than that. It's customer service, it's being able to interact with people, it's collaboration, it's how to dress, it's how to show up on time, and you learn a lot of that with your internship, and those are the kinds of things that we discuss at home. People calling in late when they're going to be out sick the next day, those kinds of things. So his presence on the board is very exciting for him because he gets to be kind of on the ground of building these representatives who will then be able to go to CCSU, and he'll already know that they're quality people who are ready to be employed in his department right at CCSU. So that's from him. It's a little deeper, but that's him.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mark Brzezinski. I'm president of the Arthur G. Russell Company in Bristol, Connecticut. I'm also a member of the advisory board for the academy. My company designs and builds complex automated manufacturing systems for customers all over the world. We currently employ 150 skilled engineers, technicians, tool makers, and support staff in Bristol, and we're growing rapidly, currently limited by talent. I became actively involved in workforce development efforts to help ensure sustainability of our business. I've spent 37 years in the manufacturing sector here in Connecticut and witnessed both the rapid advancement of manufacturing technology and the decline in the availability of talent prepared to implement and maintain that technology. The widening skills gap is not just limiting our growth, but the viability of our customers and much of American manufacturing. The skill set in highest demand in my industry is mechatronics. Mechatronics is the combination of electrical, mechanical, and computer skills required to work in the high-tech machinery used in advanced manufacturing today. It's worth mentioning that you have one of the best college mechatronics programs in the Northeast in your backyard at CCSU. Their robotics and mechatronics engineering technology program is first rate. The reasons for this talent crisis are many, but in my opinion, the solution is simple. Combine strong STEM education programs with inspiration to apply those skills at an early age, then provide a clear pathway to strengthen and apply those skills in a rewarding career. Inspiring students is why my company proudly sponsors and supports the FIRST robotics team within our organization in our facility. For those of you that aren't familiar with FIRST, it's a program, an international program founded for inspiration and recognition of science and technology. Each year, thousands of teams made up of tens of thousands of high school students design and build robots to compete in a unique and challenging game. Competitions take place at the area, regional, and national level. Our team, Operation Peace Robotics, recently qualified for and competed at the World Championships held in Detroit and won the prestigious Engineering Inspiration Award for mentoring kids involved in FIRST LEGO League at the Bristol Boys and Girls Club. Two team alums, currently engineering students, will be employed as interns at AG Russell this summer. Billed as a sport for the mind where every player can go pro, FIRST gives kids the opportunity to work together as a team, get hands-on experience with technology and business while having a blast. I mention business because team duties often include publicity, fundraising, planning, and logistics. In fact, many schools have elevated their FIRST teams to varsity level sport. Connecticut is one of 3 states that has authorized high schools to have varsity level FIRST teams and have equal funding with football and basketball. I strongly believe in the FIRST program, and I truly believe that considering starting a team as a way of strengthening the Academy of IT and Manufacturing and Engineering would be a tremendous move on your part. There are tremendous resources available to help get started, and I'd be happy to help in any way I can. I'll leave you with a quote from Dean Kamen, inventor, visionary, and founder of FIRST. FIRST is more than robots. The robots are a vehicle for students to learn important life skills. Kids often come in not knowing what to expect of the program nor of themselves. They leave, even after the first season, with a vision, with confidence, and with a sense that they can create their own future. So, thank you. I've got copies of both the Quinnebog Community College Mechatronics program and Central's. So, I'll leave a business card. Any of you can contact me if you're interested. It's really a tremendous program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Bruce Fedorowicz. I'm from Burlington, Connecticut. I'm retired executive director of the Aerospace Components Manufacturers, which represents 112 growing companies in the aerospace industry here in the state of Connecticut. I'm also a 39-year veteran of the aerospace industry here in the state of Connecticut and a graduate of the school system all through the state of Connecticut. Whether you realize it or not, we are in Silicon Valley of aerospace here. And believe it or not, New Britain, the greater New Britain area is the epicenter of that Silicon Valley. Each and everybody in this room has an enormous challenge. In the next 2+ years, we need over 20,000 new members to join our industry. The silver tsunami is retiring. That number is comprised of over 15,000 for United Technologies, Pratt & Whitney, and over 8,000 for Electric Boat. That does not include the 112+ members of the organization which I belong. And beyond those 112, there are literally within a 100-mile radius of here over 500 manufacturers that change the shape of metal and add special processes. I was asked to join this advisory board to bring an industry perspective, and I hope I'm providing that perspective. This is a serious challenge for each and every one of us. President Pratt & Whitney has gone on record to say that we are not destined to stay in the state of Connecticut, nor is Silicon Valley destined to be here. Without replacement workers, this industry is going to gravitate, as you've seen other industries gravitate. I'll also go on to say aerospace is the largest export in the United States. It's by far the largest export in the state of Connecticut. Again, in the state, we talk about manufacturing a lot, but I like to differentiate. Aerospace has a 20+ year tailwind. I say that because students right now in elementary school will have guaranteed jobs when they come out. Why am I saying that? Because the Boeing and Airbus companies, if you want to buy an airplane today, you're waiting at least 8 years. 64% of those engines are made right over here, about 12 miles away in East Hartford. The other 40% are made in Cincinnati. But the people around you and the people I represent make many of those components, despite the fact that the corporate headquarters is in Cincinnati. This school, along with other schools, are churning out and trying to churn out as many students as possible to fill that large gap. And by the way, I understand education is to bring people to the next level and get them onto advanced education. But college is not for everyone of us. As I said many times in my lectures, college is not for everyone, and for those who not to have a trade, and that's where this industry addresses. It's not uncommon for students a couple years out of school to earn up to $100,000 in the industry of aerospace here. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, I just want, Sandra Sanford, I'm back, just wanted to say thank you to all of our partners and all the hard work they've been doing, and thank you for listening to the presentation. They have been meeting monthly, talking about curriculum, the structure of the academy, the recruitment, and actually doing tours to other places to see what they can bring to New Britain High. But we are also talking K-12 initiative and how we can build that pipeline along the way. So I'm just up here to say thank you for all their hard work, and thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Can we just have just our former graduates too, just introduce themselves? Wasn't so formal.
Hi, so my name is Roman. I graduated New Britain High in January 2017. I basically didn't know what I'm supposed to do, and like, college is not for me. Just like just said it, it's just not for me. I'm not for I'm not for classes to sit in them. I'm mostly hands-on. If it would have been a great privilege if there wasn't actually like an academy of IT or manufacturing in New Britain High when I was in there. Since now I'm learning much faster. Thanks to Richard's Machine, they've taught me a lot of stuff in just 1 year. It was everything was hands-on. There was nothing I wasn't just sitting there and taking notes or something. I was actually doing it, and that's why I know more in a year than I possibly could have learned in like 4 or 5 years. If you have any questions, I can answer them. I don't know what to do.
I think you just said it.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Thomas. I graduated from New Britain High School last year. See a couple of familiar faces. basically, the reason I came here, I didn't think I was going to speak, but now that I am, as everyone was speaking, I kind of built up this little section that I wanted to add. When I was at New Britain High, I took part in a metals processing class with Mr. Rudnick, and it was in that whole section where they have the robotics and the graphic design, basically the IT kind of department. And to be honest, going into that class, when you see these old 70s, 80s Bridgeports and these old manual lathes, it's almost intimidating to a point where if you think that this could be your career, it's kind of like, oh, that looks dangerous, and you know, nobody really knows the actual aspects of like manufacturing today with computers, CNCs, CMMs, and I believe that, you know, when a student comes into this classroom and it's dim and there's oil everywhere and it stinks, and it really is intimidating for someone to try to learn something and think that there's almost more to it because it's kind of the old way of doing things. Personally now, when I'm working at Richard's Machine, it's just, there's a whole other side of manufacturing that no one would really ever see unless they actually go into it. Thankfully, my father is he works at Whitney Aerospace, and you know, he's always told me about things that happen at work, and it seemed really interesting to me. So pretty much what I wanted to say is that I don't think schools give enough information on the jobs that are out there and the careers that, you know, could be there, and that it's not how it is, you know, because I mean in school, just in general, you know, there's not always the newest technology, and that's normal, that's fine. But it's, you know, just having the idea of there is more to this is what basically I kind of strive for in New Britain High. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one more minute, I promise. So you have a lot of pages here that you can read, but there was one thing I did want to make mention, and Dr. Tucker, if you want to chime in, you can. I'm going to read your words. On May 3rd, 18 of our young men from New Britain High School attended the 6th Annual Future Educator Symposium at Southern Connecticut. The FES Symposium is hosted by ACES and brings male educators of color in the profession to share their journeys in education, how they entered the profession, necessary coursework, and flexibility and options, art, history, music, sciences. The day encompassed breakout sessions, panel discussions, and meeting with the admissions officer from Southern Connecticut State University. Our students were engaged and asked pointed questions. Another highlight of the day was eating lunch in the cafeteria with SCSU students and a variety of buffets. That always gets them, always. The cafeteria gets them.
Yes.
Thank you to Kevin Williams, one of our teachers at New Britain High School, and Dr. Tucker, who attended and chaperoned the event for our 18 students. And I just want to thank the people as they walked out too from the IT and manufacturing. And again, as over the last couple of years, just meeting with different industry partners and showing what a need there is for manufacturing IT. And I think it dovetails beautifully with our transformation around including STEM and STEAM activities for our littlest ones starting at 5 years old. So we're excited to be helping to produce the next generation of potential aerospace workers or manufacturing.
Can I ask a question? I think it's great that we have these companies involved, but do we have New Britain companies?
We do. We
Okay.
do. I know Jason Howie from OK Industries. We're actually going to visit a school next week with him in East Hartford to look at what they're doing. So we do. Not everyone could come.
Doing stuff too.
And we have so many.
We do have local people as well. I think what's nice is that we have people beyond our zip code as well, though.
No, I think that's
And-
great,
and
but
you're right.
I
Make
want
sure
to
we
invest
were-
our own New
Our
Britain people.
local are here, but we're trying to
And-
reach beyond our
And
boundaries to get
hopefully
it done.
maybe donate some of their a little outdated equipment that they're replacing with new equipment.
Right.
But is
Well,
in the
it's-
90s
Right.
equipment.
Yes.
To replace our 70s.
Yeah, to replace our 70s.
So we look for the generosity of
Right. We look
outside
for the
the-
generosity of all of you on that board
Right.
and hope that you would smile graciously upon us. Right.
And so the only other thing is you, in your my notes to you, just showed the couple of meetings that I've had, some of the results of the meetings I've had with the teachers across the district.
Yes.
And you can read through that, and if you have any questions, let me know.
It's so short, Nancy.
I know. Well, and then the other,
She hasn't been doing it.
well, the other thing that I added was
No.
there's press releases
No, it's
and the
awesome.
handout that I've given to teachers, just so it gives you some light reading.
You know, I appreciate it. Okay. Okay, there's something behind me. Not on here.
Oh, I'm going to introduce the next. This is the last. Do you like the way I just put these into my superintendent report?
Yeah, I was like,
So,
we said something
there
about no
was-
presentation.
Okay. No, this isn't a presentation. This is a part of my report. So, 2 weeks ago, there were, we had put through some of the new hires to our district. They're on the family engagement team, the FET team, and there were questions around it. And so whenever there are questions, I want to be able to provide you with more information. So I did invite Mr. Jay Maramont, Ms. Meg Shea, and our 2 new staff members to just briefly go over what the FET team is, give a little bit of the background of it. Jay or Meg, if you want to come up and start it. And, yeah? Family engagement team. Yeah?
Yeah, I was like, I don't see that on here. But I see
No, it's
something
part of my
popping up
superintendent
here.
report.
Okay. Gotcha.
So good evening, my name is Jay Maramont. I'm one of the assistant principals at Pulaski Middle School. On behalf of the family engagement / school-based diversion team, I just want to give you a brief history and the inception and how it's evolved and continues to evolve to this point. It actually started as a conversation on the steps of the high school with Superintendent Sarah back in the summer.
Last summer,
As
the barbecue.
always, she was willing to listen. This is something I'm very passionate about. Something that I've used in my 16 plus years here in the district was something called Family with Service Needs. It actually was a referral to juvenile court. There were pros and cons with that process because obviously it put our students at times on a track into the court system. But it also provided an incredible opportunity for wraparound services and intervention with our families through the Juvenile Review Board here in town with Omar McDo. With that being said, I've been part of some meet and greets through the Department of Children and Families where various school district personnel are invited, and I asked, what's going on in your town? We can no longer use family with service needs. What are you guys doing? And through that evolved this process. Why can't we get these people that serve on the Juvenile Review Board and provide services to our families? Why can't we make this part of our school system on a more voluntary, family engaging process? So with that, Superintendent Sarah, she always does put me in contact with the right people, Meg Shea, Sandra Sanford, who's here, Trish Putnam, and we began the process. We began looking at our RTI process and fine-tuning that so it can be universal across schools, something that we've been working really hard at. And from there, we've done a lot of work. We've had a couple new hires. We've had some family engagement team meetings at the high school, and we're off and running with much work to do, but it's really exciting and it gives our families and students an opportunity to receive services, but not necessarily something that's mandated through the courts, but something we are willing to offer in a true partnership. So I'm going to turn it over to my team here.
Thank you. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Sarah, Paul Selena, Shawana Tucker, and also Nicole. Yeah. So anyway, basically, as Jason spoke, it was started by a conversation, but also for board members who were here last year and new board members, there were many conversations at board meetings about attendance and what was happening with attendance. And one thing historically we would see over and over again during our attendance meetings, whether it was middle school or whether it was high school or elementary school, is that our parents were not engaged coming in when they needed to be supportive with our students because they themselves were not getting information sometimes that they needed. Not for lack of anybody trying. Communication was there. Guidance counselors, social workers would spend a lot of time. But if parents aren't engaged and feeling like they feel anxious coming into a school, what we were finding is we couldn't get to our students that were chronically absent. So that's when that conversation occurred, and in October, we had our first family engagement team meeting where we selected 2 high school students who were very different for the reasons of why they were being absent. One was situational, and there was circumstances beyond that student's control, and so we gathered some information. We used the forms that had been created, and we had a meeting that community partners came into the meeting. Superintendent Sarah was there, Kelly Grant was there, lots of community agencies to see how our process that we had started to design could work. we knew that we would need point people to really drive this work. So as Jason said, we really sat down and looked at this case study of the student and what the family would need, what the student would need. So in that, after having built the structure for the family engagement team process, all the paperwork, all the documentation we started to use. But what we started to see is that we needed more support, was basically where this idea stemmed from, and it just grew. So we hired Amanda Colon, who is to my right. We hired Amanda Wayne. She is to my right as well. And they started the process that we designed together. So I hope that answers some questions that may have been brought up. And if you have any questions at this point, they're a little nervous. This is their first time being in front of a board. So, but if you would like to
We're the
ask
tame
us any
ones.
questions.
You're at a good place right now. Just saying, for those of you who have ever been to our meetings, this is a very good group to get your first presentation out of the way. So if there's anything that maybe you have found in the last couple of months that you think would be something you'd like to share with us, feel free.
I think it's just, what we're trying to do is at least structure the engagement team kind of process and the forms. Both Amanda and I are from that social work background, so what's working, what's kind of certain language that's being used that maybe can be universal and more forthcoming and welcoming to families. So I think that's the biggest piece of engagement. And then just being able to advocate for our most, fragile families and students, to be able to kind of get them connected to the appropriate resources that they're requiring in the time of a situation or a crisis or, whatever it is that's going on in their lives. So.
And then on a daily basis, we are working with our support team, our administration, our teachers, to see and determine what processes are working and are beneficial for our most fragile students to uniform the RTI process to create this foundation.
Just a comment. I think that what you guys do, generally speaking, is extremely valuable to our community. I have a daughter who just graduated in social work and just began her first job. And some of the stories I hear are very difficult, and I just want to personally thank you guys for getting involved with this. I think it's a very valuable service that we need in our community.
Of course, thank you.
I wish you the best. I know it's not easy.
Thank you. We're very excited to at least be here. I'm a former student of New Britain High School, so I'm happy to be back in those hallways and getting kids motivated. So and maneuvering when the bell has rung. So,
Nice.
But I'm very excited to be here. So we thank you all for allowing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Does anybody else have questions?
I think we're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Superintendent report is done.
I can't see that in the dark. That's right too, but. Yes. Yes. Yeah. All right. Point of privilege, I just want to acknowledge Alderman Christian Rosado in the back. He snuck in. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I know. It's like one went out, one went in. That's okay.
They're actually the same person.
They're the same person. All right. Okay, so next on the list we have board reports. Does anyone have any board reports this evening?
I'll just, if I may.
Yes.
I did attend the.
Music Mania?
No, I did not. No, sorry, no.
We all
I did not.
assumed that was what it was.
The Excellence in Education Awards, which was great.
Yes.
Nicole and I were there. It was great. Everybody moved along quickly. And this afternoon, I went to the information, the Q&A session that superintendent held at De Loretto, and was surprised. I thought it would be packed with a million questions, and it really wasn't. There were a good number of people there, but not overly anxious or concerned or, but it was interesting because I expected much more angst than I saw today. So I hope that means that people are calm and not that they don't care.
Yes, I attended Jefferson Elementary School, which was very nice because my children attended there, so it's like bringing back all these floods of memories when they were there. And I went to visit the children as they recycled, and they created out of recycled goods. And I left her so impressed with some of the creativity that I saw out of cartons and just so many things that they did. It was really nice. It was a kindergarten class too, so it was very nice. And I did go to Music Mania with my granddaughter, and she loved it, so it was very nice. Very nice. Kudos to the high school students. Very nice job.
Since we are on the topic of STEM and STEAM and getting this into hoping that we get students going to these fields, for the high school over the summer, where I guess this high school is trying this program called Trio UBMS. I'm sure you've at least heard of it. It's working with CCSU, and it's trying to not only give you the college experience, but focus in on STEM. And it's a 6-week program. 6 weeks, yeah. And it's 3-week, you're commuting there, and you're doing all types of courses of maths and sciences, and you do have a period of English and like a mindset class like careers, but it is focused on math and science, and it's physics, it's chemistry, it's geography, it's algebra, it's everything you would think of what STEM is. And then it's 3 weeks residential, so you're actually living there, and you get to do this lab report. And I think that's really what we need, is to really like immerse everyone in what the STEM is. And the high school students who applied and got in are so excited for this. It's 60 students, I believe 20 are from an outside school and 40 are from the high school. And even the application process was different. Like you had to have two letters of recommendation. You had to show your GPA. There was they said they might have to interview you, but I'm not sure if they're gonna end up doing so. But still, it's showing you that college experience, and I think that's really cool, and we're all extremely excited for it. And we get a stipend out of it. We get a CCSU credit and a high school credit. So that's, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
That sounds really good. Like, that's money in your pocket. You might not know it yet, but that's a lot of money. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I attended the dance recital put on by the YWCA down at the high school, which included New Britain schools from elementary through high school. And they did a great job, and I love the fact that they had it divided, so if you stayed for the first act and you had kids that you wanted to see in the first act, they did a finale for the first act, and then they went on to the second.
Oh, that's
so
really
you didn't
nice.
have to stay there until the very
I've been to
end.
those where you have
And it was very professional. As soon as one group came off, the next group was coming on stage, so it went really fast, and it was really, really wonderful. Really enjoyed it.
Yes, just a couple things. First, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday prior to that, I had the opportunity of seeing some of our elementary students participate in a concert at South Church through a community choir group here, the Main Street Singers. One of my colleagues is one of the directors for that. I actually got to play along with them as well, so I got to accompany, and it was a really nice event. It's good to see students engaging in the arts both in and outside of school. I also wanted to just take a second to acknowledge some donations and grants that are on our consent agenda.
Please do.
And speaking of our local manufacturers, we have $1,300 from Polymer Precision Aerospace Manufacturing for the New Britain High School STEM Club, so thank you very much to them. We also received $1,000 from Cool Smiles here in New Britain. to help promote dental hygiene, and that went into, I believe it was an elementary classroom. And then we received $50,000 from the American Savings Foundation for our summer education programming, and an additional $40,000 from the Community Foundation of Greater New Britain, also for the summer learning programs that we do that goes to help bring in our community partners. So we really do appreciate the generosity of all of those local partners in the community, because they really do help us extend what we can offer and do a lot more here in New Britain. So thank you to all of them.
Excellent. And the Saturday before last, I was able to attend opening day for Fagan baseball and to see all of our students, and they're so little. Starting off playing baseball as little as 4 years old, as old as like 12, 13. And I happened to be the only city official there, so I had to speak and throw out the first pitch. And baseball's not my sport. I say that all the time. Just throw it. Yeah.
That's what I do.
I am a baseball fan by marriage, is what I tell people. That is not my sport. But it was just awesome to see the kids, the camaraderie, the parents behaving nicely. Everybody was encouraging to the students. And to hear, some of the parents just say that it's nice to be able to be out. It was finally sunny, right? So they're out and they're enjoying, they're supporting their kids, and it's great, because I'm now getting to see a lot more parents, and good and bad, talking to parents all the time. But it's awesome. And if you get a chance, if you don't have any little people, but you want to see some kids at work, I was able to see the softball game as well. The girls were playing softball on one field, and then there was one baseball, one t-ball game, and one rookie game, all happening at the same time. So it's a great place to see our young athletes at work at Martha Hart Park.
I also attended the Music Mania, which was fantastic. It's always amazing to see how talented musically in every way, but musically in the district of every age. I also attended, not this Saturday, but the previous, the History Day event at CCSU, which had some of our students. And at that level, it was because they had already won at regionals and moved on to states. So I don't think any of our New Britain kids made it national, but it was still pretty awesome that they were there. That means they did excellent, against a lot of people in the region. And I also attended, I don't remember the name of it, but it's like a cultural event at Hal's, where the students had
Multicultural night.
multicultural night. Yeah, so they had, they were able to show off a lot of their work, research. There were some amazing things, kids that built robots and things, and we got to play with them and see them. And as always, it's great to have food, and they had to prepare dishes related to the research that they did. So there was lots of amazing food and lots of talent, both academic and hands-on, for all the kids there.
Excellent. Yes.
I will add to that. Now, I've been getting used to how you guys operate here. Just on a community base. A couple weeks back, I attended the North Oak cleanup.
Yes.
And it was remarkable the response we got. Alderman Reyes was there as well, as he just came in the room. But the kids that participated in that cleanup was very heartwarming to see. There was a lot of issues in the area, and the volunteers there was in the hundreds, and it was nice because it was all ages, and kids probably from the age of 5 and up helping out in the community. It was really nice to see that. So I thought I'd share that.
One of my 3-year-old students was there.
Oh, really? Cleaning up garbage.
That is so cute. Okay. Committee reports. Finance Committee, do you have something to say for finance and curriculum combined?
For finance, nothing to report really. It's just
Everything's in here.
Yeah, in the agenda.
That's fine. Curriculum? Do you have anything for curriculum?
Hold on, we were there. Define STEM. Yes, we heard all about Define STEM. That's what it was about. And the program, the curriculum, I learned about the team that has been put together that will be going from school to school during, like once a month, and providing units of learning and lessons to our students of every age and grade level in the STEM area. And the program has really specific curricula that shows all the materials that are needed to complete certain products depending on what the students are learning. The students have a lot of choice in how to show what they learned. And it will help the team that has been put together be able to sort of get the program off the ground quickly compared to if they had to create all the content and curricula on their own.
And Dubai, that was amazing to me to see that Dubai Islands. I've never
Yes,
knew that.
there was a video on how
Yeah.
the Dubai Islands were created. I'm still not convinced that they're gonna hold up much.
I'm not either. I know.
That
It looked
scares me.
nice.
Meryl, well, Meryl's
Wellness,
not here,
yes.
but I did attend the wellness meeting at 8:00 in the morning. But, many of the lunch programs and what they're gonna be adding, and, fundraisers were discussed about, the food situation. And one of the topics that came up were the fundraisers with the new program, the culinary program that's coming in with the STEAM program. And we have another second part of that at the end of the month, so. I'm gonna tell Meryl.
And any policy updates? I didn't see any.
We're looking over we look mostly over administration, medication. Nothing definitive coming forward with changes yet. Our head nurse, Ms. Maddie, is going to be conferring with Dr. Dudley on that and bringing more recommendations back to the board.
Okay. Personnel.
Personnel, I understand we're pulling an item off consent for tonight, to parent educators, item I. We had a presentation by Kelly Services
Yes.
to renew their contract. Kudos to them. They are not increasing their fees to the district for the upcoming year, so, which is excellent news. And then we had looked at some revised job descriptions. Mostly self-explanatory, but
Right.
sure. Someone will pull something. That was it.
Okay. And we already had the presentation from the folks. All right. If you would look at the consent agenda briefly and see if there's anything else that you would like to remove, please take a moment and let me know.
If I could have items D and M removed.
M,
M. And I, which was already stated.
And I, well, right, yeah. I think we weren't even gonna mention that. And I. Okay. Right. Seeing none other, we'll take D up for this. Entertain a motion on personnel approved personnel transactions.
Yes, I'd like to actually just make a friendly amendment to add, we have 2 additional personnel transactions, and just to amend item D to include the 2 blue sheets that were put in our packets.
that motion?
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
And I'll motion to approve the personnel transactions as amended.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Okay. And a motion on I for,
A motion to postpone I indefinitely.
Second.
all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? For the record, it is to approve a position request. We are postponing it until further information is given. Okay. And M,
A motion to approve the bid waiver purchase order of the Stop the Bleed trauma kits.
Second.
discussion?
I have to say, this is something I've kind of gone back and forth on. I'd appreciate possibly a little bit more information. My concern is that with the nature of what these bags, I have a couple of concerns. The first is that with the nature of what these bags are, we're putting something else potentially on the teachers' plates where we're asking them to potentially take on the role of standing in as a trauma EMS personnel in the classroom. And while I think any teacher would want to do the most they could for their students, I question whether or not this expenditure is necessarily the best way to accomplish this, especially since it's coming out of local funds. And just, I'd be curious if before this was brought forward, if there was any feelers put out to the district staff to see how many would be interested in getting this training, especially if they're going to be placed in every classroom, because it's quite a cost of $86,000 to outfit the schools with these emergency kits. Additionally, in reviewing the material, I noticed some of the supplies are 5-year expiration, and I'm really concerned of what the cost would be to continue with training staff on how to use these items, with maintaining the supply, especially if there's a 5-year expiration on a lot of these trauma supplies. I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea, but I'm wondering if it's something with, with how much this costs and with what we're facing as a district, if this is the best expenditures of our funds. So those are just my thoughts on it as it is before us.
Any other thoughts, questions?
I don't disagree with most of what Nick said. It's a lot of money, and I think if we want some kind of medical kits, is there a grant we could use, or a donor, but the training, tourniquet use and so forth is very specialized. I think it's more, in the event that anything like that, any emergency kits would be needed, I don't think anybody would think twice, but it's almost like a feel-good to have the kits there. People are not comfortable using them, and I'm not sure that without training, which of some of the components would be used.
I think they were planning to train them to use the components. So if we have to learn CPR in order to save a life, so put a tourniquet on someone to stop them from bleeding, I mean, I'm not particularly excited to do it.
Oh, I know, that's why I think everybody would go above and beyond, but if it's in every classroom, does that mean there's every classroom teacher would need to be trained? Is there, no?
Well, eventually, not in the beginning. I mean, you do it just like you do any other training you have. You train some people, and then you train more people each year, but I think it would be important because we don't have a nurse in every classroom, and I don't know, I think if it was my child, I would want someone to have something available, especially in a situation where someone is bleeding out, because that seems like something that the least that you can do, kind of thing. So, I mean, and some of the other items that were in the kit were to stop bleeding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also to seal a wound, because when, yeah, and there were, 3 other things?
So if you'd like, can I just have Mr. Hallett come and speak for a couple of minutes? Mr.
Sure.
Hallett?
Yeah.
This isn't a part of the superintendent report, so it can't be.
Can I just make
I
a
brought a
comment?
demonstration, so let me grab my little card over here.
Oh, you've got ancillary materials.
This is Raymore the second.
Okay, right, he gets 5.
She wants to say,
While he's getting that, I would like to add on, I understand your concern, Nick, and I agree with the amount. I think it's a hefty cost, but in case of an emergency, whether it was my child, my grandchild, I would like to know that when he mentioned that so many lives are lost simply because they don't have that one device, that tourniquet, to save lives. To me, at the end of the day, I kind of feel like if we found money for many other things, I think this is something that we could find money to invest on.
Yes.
Again, just on top of that, I agree that in the event of a tragedy, we want people to be trained and have the necessary tools. But per what it was worded as in the memorandum, it's a voluntary training for willing staff members. I know we often offer CPR training for free. Like a lot of districts offer CPR training for staff members for free. Very few take it up. And so I'm just concerned, and then it's also the risk of, I have some concerns, but I'd like to hear more information.
And while the setup is happening as well, I wasn't there for that meeting, and forgive me if I, am asking what was already given in terms of background, but is the motivation completely just, prevention, like in the event of a tragedy kind of thing, or is it that things have happened in the district where if you could stop someone's bleed, they would be safe? You know what I mean? Are we
Well, this is more in
sort
response.
of reacting to?
This is, I think, proactive.
So as a district, unfortunately, we've had to become more proactive in what's going on around the country with critical incidents and active shooter incidents. For example, we've...
Mr. Halpern, you should get a podium for you.
Okay. So for example, we've rolled out the ALICE training, which is kind of a more proactive approach to the traditional lockdown procedures that we've done in the past. For years, for lockdowns, what we've done traditionally is kind of just close the door, pull the shades, turn off the light, everybody's kind of huddled in the corner, and God forbid an active shooter, somebody came into a room to do harm to students, they could literally just go in and choose their victims one at a time. So we've rolled out this ALICE training where we've gone and we've done it in a phased approach. We got all the staff members to the auditorium through, all 1,200 of them, did a overview of the ALICE program. We then sent out links to each staff member, and then we're going to take it to the next level by going to the actual schools and conducting hands-on drills. In addition to the ALICE training, I've been working one-on-one with the captain of the New Britain EMS, and I know Nancy had mentioned a while back, what about first aid kits and this and that in the classrooms, and it's also part of the ALICE training, that our emergency green kits that we have, that the principals have. So we're looking, what should we have in the event of a critical incident, and looking at some of the first aid kits that we had, when we were doing our school inspections. I went to a school and, we had a Ziploc bag that said first aid, and it had, one cold compress, 3 Band-Aids, and a piece of gauze. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, if I had to evacuate with 500 kids, I think I'd want more than 3 Band-Aids and a pack of gauze. And for whatever the incident. And so looking at all these critical incident shootings and stuff, I've done a lot of research, and going to the instructor level training at ALICE, I've learned some pretty grim facts. And the facts are that the 70% of all preventable deaths are from bleeding, right? So when these critical incidents occur, a lot of these deaths could be prevented if there was a way to stop the bleeding. Unfortunately, when these events occur, a typical response time for EMS is about 10 minutes, right? So it's about 2 minutes before somebody calls 911, 2 minutes before 911 dispatches the call, and another 5 minutes or so before emergency services arrive. So you're looking at 9 to 10 minutes just to get police in the parking lot. Right? Once they get in the parking lot, then they have to go into the school and neutralize the threat. Usually these incidents are over in 5 to 7 minutes. So by the time the police get there, many times these incidents are over. So I started thinking, well, what would you need, to augment the supplies, in the event that you had a critical incident like this? And my thought process right away was, you would need tourniquets, chest seals, compression bandages, and QuikClot are really the 4 things that you need to treat a gunshot wound. I had, besides my role here at the New Britain School District, I've also served for 16 years with the Naval Expeditionary Combat Command. I've deployed twice overseas. I've responded to numerous mass casualty situations, and have used these items for real. So I know what it takes to stop bleeding or to treat somebody with that kind of wound. So I went to Nancy, gave her my idea. She said, hey, sounds good, maybe a little over the top, you know, tourniquets and all this stuff. You really need all that stuff, you know, he's coming with these crazy ideas. And I said, how about if I go over to the New Britain EMS and talk to those folks and see what they think? You know, they're the experts, they do it day in and day out. Let's get their take on it. So I went down there, met with Captain Morisano, gave him my ideas, said, here's what I think we should have. He said, you know what, you're absolutely right. Here's a list. I said, where do you guys get your supplies from? He gave me a list of a few vendors. Did research, checked with North American, CPR Plus, and this place, Common Sense here in Old Saybrook, that they use, and they were by far the most competitive vendor. So this Common Sense vendor, they actually put together, help us customize this kit, this large red kit right here. What we're proposing is we purchase 35 of these kits and place them throughout the schools, right? So 5 in the high school, 3 in each middle school, and 2 in each elementary school, and then 1 in each of the smaller buildings. The contents of them looks like this. So this is what's inside of them. And these are really the things that you would need, okay? So these are tourniquets, chest seals, compression bandages, and the quick clot agent. Okay, so the tourniquet really works as a valve. In the event, God forbid, you are subjected to a gunshot and the victim is bleeding out, which it only takes 3 to 5 minutes, by the way. So if you have a severed artery, you have 3 to 5 minutes before you die. Okay, so if you have this tourniquet, slide it up, crank it down. This is almost like a spigot on the outside of your house where you turn the water off. You put this on and tighten it down, that'll stop the flow of blood and it'll prevent somebody from bleeding to death. These are compression bandages. These are pressure bandages. They come with a little hump on them, so if you had a wound or a laceration here, you put that compression bandage on, wrap it around a couple different ways, and it applies direct pressure on that spot as well. Chest seals, in the event that a victim is shot in the chest or has a sucking chest wound, this is something that you need to, anywhere in this area, you would use one of these seals and apply it there. And then last but not least, the quick clot. This is what they call a Z-fold quick clot bandage, and this is used for packing a wound. It's also treated with a special powder that kind of cauterizes the wound and will help stop the bleeding. So you can pull this out and actually pack it into a wound, and it'll kind of like cauterize or weld the wound shut. But these are all items that you would need. If I was to get shot right now, and this was in the room, I feel pretty confident that somebody here would be able to stop the bleeding long enough to get me to safety. Another fact, when I went and met with Captain Morisano of the New Britain EMS and told him what we were planning to do, he was thrilled. He said, "This is unbelievable you guys are doing this." He goes, "You know what, because if there is ever a critical incident where you have a mass casualty situation, that at any given time we only have 3.5 ambulances available in the city of New Britain, meaning 3 ambulances and 1 supervisor. Each ambulance only carries 3 of each of those items on it. So if you 3, 6, 9, say 10, 12 tops, right? So if there was a critical incident where we had 17 or 20 victims and every ambulance in the city of New Britain was available and every one of them responded, they would have enough to treat 12 people. So then you would have to wait for ambulances from Newington or Hartford or wherever, which would come eventually, but remember, we got 3 to 5 minutes, okay? So by putting these supplies in the schools, not only are we making them available for staff members that are willing to do it, and I get it, not everybody's gonna wanna do it, right? Not every teacher's gonna wanna do it, some people are gonna wanna do it, some people are not. So how we're gonna roll it out is, and the New Britain EMS folks are willing to conduct the training themselves, so they, towards the end of the year, I'm gonna send out an email and find out, how many staff members are interested in doing it. And the EMS folks have volunteered to go to all 15 schools to conduct the training for the staff members that are willing to do it. So it'd be twofold. It'd be there available for staff members that are willing to use it, and it would also be there to augment the supplies for our EMS folks, God forbid we ever needed it. So the intent is that we purchase it and never ever have to use it. But if we do need it, and we do purchase it for $85,000, and we save even 1 life for 85 grand, it's worth it to me. They're also including, the blue bags on the bottom here are actually training bags that the vendor is throwing in. So we do get them, and the New Britain EMS folks go around. These blue bags are duplicates of these, but it's all training materials. Everything's in blue.
Gotcha.
We have these kits. They're going to custom make these wall units. So these will be hung up in the walls around the school for the larger kids. And they will be, and it has an alarm, so if somebody opens it, it'll trigger an alarm, so there'll be an audible noise. Then these kits would be the kits that we would place inside the classrooms. And each one of these kits has just one of each. So it has one chest seal, one quick clot, one battle bandage, one quick clot. Originally, we were looking at this type of bag, which has like a MOLLE strap system on it. But if we purchased these bags, we would have to mount a bracket inside every classroom in the district. I worked with a vendor and had them, I said, I was going to Home Depot trying to figure out what's the best way we could mount these things on the wall. And I walked by the Velcro section, and a light went off, and I said, man, this Velcro says it'll hold 15 pounds. So I called the vendor, and they said, I said, hey, can you put some Velcro on? So they actually had the manufacturer sew Velcro on the bag of this bag. This is a test bag. And I also had them add a zipper, so it has two zippers, so you can put a seal, so if it gets open, you can tell if it's been tampered with. But by having these with the Velcro, now we could distribute them to the teachers. The teacher can simply take one piece of the Velcro, pull the thing, put it on the wall, bam, it's installed. And we don't have to worry about facilities installing 700 first aid kits in classrooms. So,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Dana, you have any questions?
Actually, I was just going to ask about the smaller kits.
Okay.
Oh, and then last but not least, sorry about that, these are the little individual first aid kits that we're going to get for the security guards that they can wear on their belt. You know, in the event of a critical incident, there's a good chance that our security folks would be the first people to respond on scene. So,
I have a question.
yes.
Since our firemen, our firefighters, our first responders, are they trained in the use of any of this equipment?
I don't know if the firefighters are. They should be. They really
They're
should
first
be.
responders.
Yeah, they're first responders. They should be. Firefighters,
They are
police.
often on scene.
Yep,
before
firefighters,
anything else, right?
police officers. Once the police neutralize the threat, then they would be willing to assist and stuff like that. And again, too, the EMS folks are willing to train as many of our staff members as they're willing to do it. So my hope was this gets approved. Before the end of the year, I go around to every school, and maybe on a Wednesday, when they're having the teacher conference day, and I show, get the principal to get all the teachers together. Hey, look at what we're doing as a district. This training's going to be available this summer. I would encourage everybody to come.
And at a minimum, I would like the administrators trained.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think it's a good thing. I know 85 grand is a lot of money, but again, if we save one life.
It is, it just bothers me. I just hope that people will step up and be trained. I mean, I think in an emergency situation, people will do what they need to, but thinking about it beforehand, sometimes people are intimidated, because it would be a shame to have, I couldn't read the directions in 5 minutes, to use any of that to make a difference in an emergency. You need trained people.
You do need training, because to sit there and try to read a card when you're doing
Right,
it is
you
not
can't.
helpful. So you need to actually practice and do drills. I'm actually going to go to some advanced EMT training as well over the summer, so in the future I'll be able to help.
Could you train it?
I could do it now, really. I've done the Combat Lifesaver course a couple times. I've done the American First Responder course, and I've actually done it for real, So I mean, I could do it, but I figured let's let the EMS folks do it. They're the folks that do it every day, and I will help and participate with them. So.
What about the shelf life?
5 years on the quick clot, so it's only really the quick clot, this stuff here, that has the 5-year shelf life. The tourniquets don't have a shelf life, and the battle bandages, or the chest seals, technically don't. They said you can inspect them after a while, but this, because there's a powder on the cloth, this stuff does expire after 5 years.
The quick clot and the chest seals per
Yes.
there. So the chest seals, they say, is 5 years.
Chest seals may because they have an adhesive.
Okay.
Yeah, you're probably right. But the tourniquets and the battle bandages definitely do not.
So it's like, God forbid, someone is injured and they need, and it's been past 5 years, and let's pretend it slipped our mind and we didn't get new ones. Can that be potentially dangerous to someone who then uses it after the expiration date?
Well,
or just does it work as?
It wouldn't be as effective, yeah.
Okay.
It wouldn't necessarily cause many harm, but if the adhesive isn't quite up to what it should be, maybe it isn't going to seal as well. If the powder is over 5 years, maybe it's not going to cauterize the wound quite the way it would.
But like, nothing would like expire and potentially cause further damage?
No.
Okay.
And these have two zippers on them as well, the large bags, so they'll also be sealed and there'll be a tag with an expiration or inspection date on them, so.
Thank you so much, Mr. Halleck. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
Your
Anytime.
explanation of all of the pieces and what is going to come with this lovely price tag. Because it is, and I agree with Mr. Mercier, the cost, I know it is $8.65 per pupil that we have. So we do realize that, and that is actually probably more money than we spend per pupil in general.
Yeah, practically.
Sadly but true. So I hear that there are definitely concerns for and against, or not against, but concerns about this item, and I think that we might want to do what we do with some policies for the postpone for a second read. I would entertain a motion for that to just really digest a little bit more. And if you have any other questions, you could email Mr. Halleck. He could, email them to me. We'll get them to Mr. Halleck, gather any more information we feel pertinent before we vote, and we can vote in the next meeting, if that makes everyone a little bit more comfortable. So I feel like there might be some things that people want a little bit more information about, and not necessarily thinking of it right this second.
I mean, I actually, with the presentation, the information given, also the explanation of some of the fact that looking at the amount of the cost that's going into the hardware that's being installed, things like that, just having a better understanding of it really did a lot to address some of my concerns.
Okay.
So I'm fine
okay?
proceeding today, but.
I still have concerns personally, but go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, the discussion has brought up concerns for me. I think we should table it and discuss it further, because I don't know if it's necessary for 700 classrooms versus strategically placing, kits in areas that are designated, that are marked where, people know where to get them. First aid kits, 700 kits in a classroom I just don't see it necessary. So I'd like to get some questions out via email and just evaluate, and also get some additional information as far as cost on, replacing the items that do expire. I want to get it done,
expeditiously.
Yeah, so that we can, get it back on at the next meeting and get this done, so you can accomplish your time frame that you're looking for. But I think that we really should evaluate it more.
Need a motion. Anyone?
Motion to postpone.
To the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Excellent. Thank you. Technically, tabling is only if it's going to be brought up in the same meeting, but most people use it the other way. All right. Okay. So new business. Are we taking this up? No, that's the same one. So we're taking it. No, that's still going forward. That's it. Get special, not for special. Okay. So, new business. Approve First Amendment to Transportation Contract with Specialty Transportation. Motion to approve the amendment.
Second.
Discussion?
I was about to say, Mr. Kane may be able to speak to this a little more clearly, but this is just, from the read of it, it's just clarifying one of the types of vehicles that we're going to be using that wasn't part of the original contract, but.
I got a fan club back here. It's not much more, so no, really, when we went out to bid for special education, there was 3 or 4 vehicles that were quoted. In discussions with specialty, Tom Halleck did realize at that point there was another vehicle that they actually used in some cases, and that was the transit 2-wheelchair van. So there is a need for that. If you recall, the ones that were here when we did the transportation, especially was very attractive in the pricing.
Mhm.
When we saw, especially versus Town and Country, the other vendors, it was quite a bit lower. So this is very competitive, but this is really a transit van. It's going to have 2 wheelchairs. And there's a need for that. I know we have used them in the past, and when Tom brought it forward, he said, well, he agreed to the amendment, and I said, well, it's great to agree to amendment, now we need to have the board agree to it. Because when we price for the transportation, we price for several different vehicles. This was close to one of the vehicles that was priced out, and some of the vendors might have thought this was a vehicle, and it was another vehicle. But right now, the board approved the contract with certain vehicles, and this is just an exception. So it's really priced very close to the other vehicles.
The differential, Kevin?
If you look at the pricing there, I don't have it in front of me because I wasn't pulling the
282
pages quick enough.
4 hours.
It's $289 a day, which is very competitive with some of the other transit. The pricing, we have vehicles out there at $289 for 4 hours. I don't have the contract in front of me. I apologize.
It's okay. So it's 4 hours, 282 for the first year, 290 for the next, 299 going forward, onward, upwards of 317 for the 4-hour day.
And you're seeing the hourly rate of $40 in excess. Now,
Right.
when we went out for a bid, that's one thing when you see the increase every year.
Mhm.
Let me see if I remember this correctly. Especially at a 3% annual increase in their pricing. So when you look at especially the contract at 282 became 290. First student actually had an increase, I believe, of 2.5%. I think DACA was at 2.9%. So we actually saw when we were looking at the pricing that they all jumped differently. So that's what you're seeing right there. It's really the same increase in the specialty contract for that type of vehicle. And it really gives us the option to use that vehicle versus another vehicle. So there's a need.
And just as a clarification, this is not necessarily saying we're going to use X number of these vehicles. This is simply adding an option to the contract, so we have it available when we need it.
It's an additional vehicle that we use, yes.
I can't answer that. I wouldn't say it's out of the reach.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? So we're just adding an option for an additional vehicle type to be covered in the contract, correct?
It's going to be, it's an amendment to the contract, so it's a separate exhibit.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes. Peanut gallery back there. Okay. Information sharing, court decision, DACO versus New Britain Board of Education. Mr. Kane, or?
See, Rich, any excuse to call him back up.
Just wanted you to get another round of applause. We apologize.
Now, as the board is aware, the contract was awarded the first student, and especially on February 20th. DACO actually filed suit against us in injunction to stop the proceeding to award a contract to both first students, especially around March 5th. DACO actually, when they sent their legal opinion to the judge and the court, they actually pulled aside the specialty contract and said we're still looking for to the first student in the regular transportation contract. This is an injunction, and really what happened is, I know Mr. Mercier was part of the proceeding, I was part of the proceeding, who else was part of the proceeding? Our attorney, Ms. Lackey, she was part of the proceeding, and it's really a litigation. We had to actually have a litigator from Shipman that represented us.
Right.
So there's really two ways to dismiss the case, or to stop the injunction. One is by standing, and the other is by merit. In our case, it was dismissed on both. So it was, it was a legal slam dunk. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. When we received the award, I think it was last Friday, I actually bumped into Mr. Mercier at Pizza, and he already analyzed the the award, the suit, and it's over. It was something that should never happen. Our current vendor had every option to accept the contract as is, and then we did. And the judge saw that and actually dismissed weeks. And if there's any questions, I mean, it's a very interesting read. And,
Yeah.
you know, and we should never have gotten to the point where it went to court. In a few weeks, I will disclose to the board as to what the cost was to us. Still calculating the cost, it wasn't cheap.
I just want to point out two things in the actual ruling that I think really get to what the board's position has been all along. And first, the judge pretty much flat out said that DATCO never agreed to match the low bid of First Student prior to the award of the contract and prior to the deadline that we put out to them. In fact, it never actually agreed to that till after they had already filed suit against us.
Right.
And that was the basis in many ways for the judge to basically say that DATCO had no standing. But even more so, I think it's important for the public to understand that in coming to this ruling, this is based solely on DATCO's testimony, the plaintiff's testimony. So when the judge ruled against DATCO, we had not even put up a defense at that point. So we had not even refuted some of the things that were said on the stand that personally I don't think were an honest representation of what transpired. But based solely on DATCO's testimony and the evidence that was brought forward, the judge ruled in our favor. The other thing that's been made made a big point of is allegations that the board was biased against DATCO and that the board had it out for DATCO in the beginning. And the judge very directly said in a statement, I'm going to quote, "To the contrary, it might be said that the letter from New Britain's defendant's attorney asking DATCO to accept the low bid without conditions showed favoritism to DATCO." Because we went back to them so many times to try to work with them, much more than what we were required to do. So I really feel like the board did what was right by the taxpayers and by our students. And it's a contract that we're under, and I'm hoping that at some point we'll go out for bid for it again, and DATCO will have another chance, just like every other vendor, to come in and put their best offer forward. But it shows that this board had the willingness, even when we were facing significant pressure, to go another way, to do what was the right fiscal thing for our students, to be sound manager of the city's funds, which has been a constant allegation we face, especially in budget season, that the Board of Education does not adequately watch the taxpayers' dollars and all of this, and we're willing to make those hard decisions in favor of giving us the most flexibility to do what we need to for our students. It was not an easy decision, but I definitely feel like the court vindicated the tough decision that the board made. So I was very pleased with the ruling, and I'm glad that the matter's been laid to rest. It's been a long process.
Yeah, there is, I mean, as we all know, there will be savings if you look at the First Student contract, which DATCO proposed contract. Unfortunately, Mr. Mercer is correct. I mean, one of the things that this really did to us, it put us in a bad position. What I mean a bad position, it has nothing to do with savings. First Student came forward and they talked about replacing all our buses with new buses. We're gonna get those new buses, but they pushed that off. So right now, we're gonna start the year with older buses, and we will get the new buses during next fiscal year. But unfortunately, we would have had it by September 1st if this suit never happened. So that's why, myself, it sort of,
Frustrating.
I don't know, I say angers me, but it angers me that we had our students, it's really trying to protect our students, and we had that set, and we had new buses coming in, and we have to wait a little while, and that's what this really pushed us beyond. It put First Student behind, it put us behind. It's gonna work out, But, you know, for the first 7 months of next year's school year, we may have some issues because they have to bring in older buses to, you know, fill in until the new buses come in. I did talk to them recently. They're excited. They're gonna try to get as many as 77 passenger buses, hopefully by September 1st, but maybe shortly thereafter. The 26 passenger vans, they're gonna order those too, but those take a little while longer. So, you know, we're actually getting a makeshift for the summer. We're hoping that early in the fall, we get the newer buses in, but we really would have had the new buses by September 1st, or even for the summer run, if things went the way they should have. This suit should never have happened.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'd like to make a motion to add an agenda item to new business, to approve a request from the New Britain High School PTO for a donation for the all-night graduation party in the amount of $500.
Second.
Discussion? Just a brief, so as most of you know, New Britain hosts an all-night grad party every year for the students, and it is an amazing time. Students are there all night and they look forward to it. They're always looking for volunteers, so please see any of the high school staff, especially Ms. Macedonian, and I remember having an all-night grad party and what it meant to be able to have those memories in a safe place with your friends, and the prizes and the amount of things that are actually even donated to New Britain High shows the community and how proud we are of our graduates. So for us to be able to contribute, I think is an amazing thing and is awesome. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
And I think it's important to mention the importance of the all-night grad party because high school parties are stereotypically just drinking, and that causes an idea of unsafety. And so instead of having kids throw parties where potentially something might go wrong, because things happen like that, like it's high school, you're having a safe environment for, I think the majority of the class goes anyway. And my brother and my sister had an amazing time. They still talk about it. But I think it's a really good idea.
Okay, so all those in favor of making the contribution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we added it and then we had to make the motion, so we're good. Now, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned. It is 7:35.